Hello everybody, it's Peter McLaughlin with BlueSky Hypnosis, and welcome to Friday Live at 5. So glad you're here. It's great to meet with you guys every Friday, especially to the regulars who come week after week, and it's wonderful to see your names, to have your comments, to have your questions. Welcome also to the new people. Wonderful to have you here too. Just want to make a clear, brief disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. Everything I say is coming from the perspective of my experience over the last 14 years as a life coach and as a hypnotist. I do work with people one-on-one, so if you have an interest in working with me at some point, you can visit my website, which is BlueSkyHypnosis.com. Blah! Okay, so today we're going to be talking about life purpose and using spiritual hypnosis to find your golden path. And I was talking to my wife earlier today about this topic and just asking her if she had any input into this. And she pulled off this little magnet, this little refrigerator magnet we have on our refrigerator. And it's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. And I just thought I'd kind of kick off today by reading from this. And before I do that, I just want to say my sort of standard piece, which is if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please, 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 please share those right here in the comments section. It makes this a way more interesting experience when it becomes more interactive. And there's so much that people have brought in the past that really makes this conversation so interesting for me, and I think so interesting for many. So let me just read this real quick about dharma, dharma meaning your purpose. So it talks about better is one's own dharma carried through imperfectly than the dharma of another carried out perfectly. So it's better to be yourself. It's better to do what lights you up. It's better to follow your own drummer and do it imperfectly. Make mistakes, fall down, than it is to do the bidding of someone else that you don't really want to do, but you do it really, really well. Maybe you make a lot of money, maybe you become famous, but your heart was never entirely in it. And then the second part of this refrigerator magnet wisdom is better is death in the fulfillment of one's own dharma, for to follow the law of another brings great spiritual peril, indicating that there is something deeper and richer in our purpose, something deeper or richer in our path. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is, I guess I kind of do this on a lot of different topics, but I like to be able to sort of take a stab at identifying what your purpose is, what may be called your dharma. And in my experience of working with, it's got to be, I don't know, I keep saying this, 1,000, 2,000 people or something over the last 14 years. And working with them with spiritual hypnosis, where we meet with their spirit guide, where their spirit guide gives them a gift, where we ask the spirit guide, what is this client's purpose? And this is not coming through me, it's now coming through the actual client. They're receiving the information and then telling me what they're hearing, what they're witnessing. The purpose, at least in those spiritual contexts, is usually something not like train conductor. It's usually something like a much deeper learning. Could be forgiveness, it could be courage, it could be finding one's voice, it could be perseverance, it could be forbearance. There are these kind of core attributes that will often come up, or almost always come up, when I have clients ask their guide, ask your guide, what is your purpose or lesson for this lifetime? The second question I then have them ask their guide is, how many lifetimes have you been working on this lesson? And the answers really stunned me in the beginning, because I was expecting to hear 1 or maybe 2. But sometimes, often, you'll hear 3 or 5, or sometimes you'll hear 13 or 22 or 30. And the guide is usually laughing at the client when they're telling them you've been working on this for like 30 lifetimes. And what I've found too is that if a person hears a number that's, say, over about 6 or 7, that's a really stubborn person. Right? They're stubborn in this lifetime. They brought the stubbornness in with them. They've been stubborn in other lifetimes. And then there's a second piece So yes, in a spiritual regression, the guide will give the client a gift. Now that gift could be like a heart, it could be a box, could be a piece of jewelry. Sometimes there's nothing in the box, but there's still a gift that's part of this quote unquote empty box. Sometimes it's a microscope, sometimes it's a telescope, sometimes it's kind of all over the place. And the gift usually relates back to that sort of deeper purpose. And I think the gift, because there's another kind of gift too, right? So that would be abilities and talents that you have, which I think can be a clue to your actual purpose. Because I think it's almost like we walk through, before we're born, it's almost like we walk through a, I don't know, like a sporting goods store or a hardware store, and there's all this stuff in there. And it's like we're about to go, we are about to go on this adventure. And we know at that point what our purpose is. We know why we're incarnating into this next lifetime. And we pick up a couple of items with us in this hardware store or in this sporting goods store. Think of those as gifts, talents, abilities, and skills that we know we're going to need on this grand adventure when we come down onto this planet. And I think sometimes when we really take an honest assessment of what we're really good at, I think that those gifts sometimes can reveal or link us back with what that purpose is that we have now sort of forgotten, the way we forget a dream when we wake up in the morning. It's right there fresh in our minds. And as we step out of bed, as we brush our teeth, as we have breakfast, that dream just kind of fades away. It's never gone. It's just like we lost our access to it. And so spiritual hypnosis is a way of re-accessing what part of you already knows. All right, so I want to just dive in here. There's a whole bunch of comments and everything, and I want to see if there's something that I can jump into and just address immediately. Let's see what we have here. Awesome to see you guys here. Darth Hideous, good to see you here. Shout out to you. Looks like you've been here before, and thanks for coming back. Mr. Mind Meditations, glad to have you here. Marie Hogan, awesome. Shout out to you too. JW Fat, good to see you. Yeah, namaste, Mind Meditation. And Legal Eagle 44. Always good to see you, Legal Eagle. So people are kind of greeting each other, which is awesome. Let's see here. Colleen is just saying, I would like to have a session with you. Having trouble with narrowing down my purpose. Okay. Well, hopefully today will help you, Colleen. And if it doesn't, and you still would like to work with me, we can definitely talk about that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, okay, Legal Eagle 44. She says, the nurses switched me at birth, and it was caught as my mother was dressing the other baby. I always wonder, what if I went to that other family? Yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Nature versus nurture. Certainly the nurture part, I would imagine, would have been entirely different, which could have changed the course of your life dramatically. In my experience, and I talk with my wife about this too. We have 3 kids, and I often talk about the kinds of the ways they were raised versus the way I was raised, or the way she was raised, and how if I had had parents like my wife and me, maybe things would have been different for me too. I'm sure it would have been. It kind of leads me to this point, however, which is when people have really difficult relationships with their parents, one of the questions that I want to get answered, and we'll start with this with a pendulum. So those of you who don't really know what I mean when I'm talking about a pendulum, I've got a video on my YouTube channel, which is just BlueSky Hypnosis. If you haven't signed up, please do, please subscribe, and you get all the new stuff that I put out. It teaches you how to use a pendulum. A pendulum is a tool that produces an ideomotor response. An ideomotor response basically means an automatic response. It's a way of understanding what's going on in your subconscious mind. So in a first session, I will talk to clients. I really want to understand them, understand their biography, why they're here, what they're dealing with, what they don't want anymore, what they do want, traumas that they've had in their lives, the dream life that they're living, if they've ever had any paranormal experiences, and so forth. And if I already know from the conversation, the biographical part of the conversation with the client, that they have a really difficult relationship with one or both parents, one of the questions I want the client to ask when they're holding the pendulum and we're understanding what's going on in their subconscious mind is, did you choose one or both of your parents before you were born? And then you go, well, why in the hell would I choose a parent that I have this horrific relationship with? And of course, from a human conscious level, you would never choose that parent. But let's say we learn that your lesson for this lifetime is forgiveness, or it's courage, or it's learning to fend for yourself, or stand on your own 2 feet, or make it on your own, or some other thing. It could be that that very difficult relationship with that particular parent actually was part of a larger plan, if you will, to set up the conditions whereby you would be more likely to face the need to develop that internal confidence, or that internal ability to have courage and persevere, or that place inside where you would be willing to forgive. Whereas if you'd had a more caring and loving parent, which all of us want, we want to be that kind of parent, and we would want, if we had our conscious druthers, that's what we would choose. But perhaps we wouldn't actually learn our lesson. We wouldn't find our true purpose in this life if we didn't have that kind of struggle. So to your point, Legal Eagle, what would have happened if you had gotten switched at birth? Yeah, things probably would have been much, much different. But how would it have changed your life? Maybe your life, maybe your life would have been easier, maybe it would have been harder, but maybe you would not have reached certain heights as an eagle that you've reached in this lifetime. I don't know for sure, but it's an interesting question to sort of ponder for yourself and say, if I didn't have that hardship, I didn't have that struggle, maybe I wouldn't be in this place right now. So just something to consider, and thanks for making the comment. All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so Janice, hi Janice. Janice Nicholas is saying, oh cool, I didn't know that you could do this. It's amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing. And it's one of the things that I generally want to do. I don't always do it, but I generally want to get certain things when a person meets their guide. I would love to be able to understand, well, first of all, I want the guide to give the client a gift, because the gift is usually a clue to something really important that we need to work out. It's oftentimes a clue to the abilities and traits that person has, or maybe something that is missing, or something more likely that's dormant that needs to be revived. And it can really set us on this magnificent journey when the guide gives the client a gift. Then understanding, what is your purpose in this lifetime? So let's just say that the purpose in the lifetime is forgiveness. And the client has, this relationship with somebody, they don't want to forgive them. But now we know, not through me, through the client, that their purpose for this lifetime is forgiveness. Okay, cool. What about this? What if we then ask the client, we ask the guide through the client, how many lifetimes have I been working on this lesson or purpose or goal? And let's say the number comes back, it's something like 12 or 13 lives. And again, this is all coming through the client. It's not coming through me. And then let's say we get into a position where there's an opportunity to forgive. And the client's like, I'm not forgiving that person. No way. Why should I? And then it will go, okay, well, you don't have to. There's no one can force you to do anything. Everything is based on free will. Ask your guide, if I don't forgive in this lifetime, am I going to be incarnated in the next lifetime with the same person under similar circumstances? If the answer is yes, it starts to shift in the mind how this person is relating to the other person and whether they're willing to forgive or they're not willing to forgive. And again, it's not like twisting someone's arm, but it's giving them all the information so that they can make an informed decision. And I can tell you this, I mean, if I found out that my lesson or purpose in this lifetime was forgiveness, and I learned that I'd been working on it for 12 or 13 lifetimes, and that this isn't my first rodeo with this person that I've had this horrible relationship with, and that if I don't forgive, I'll just reincarnate with them again and go through the exact same thing, I think I'd probably be leaning on the forgiveness side. Again, no one could force me to do that. But can you see how by having more information about all of this, it can kind of change in the mind the consequences, the stakes. I mean, if you're going to buy, a house, you get it inspected first. You want to know from an expert, what's the condition of the roof? What's the plumbing like? What's the electricity like? I don't know. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a plumber. I'm not going to go up on the roof. But I want to know these things before I put in the offer, before I make the decision to make this huge purchase. Doesn't it make sense that you'd want as much information as possible? It's the same thing when it comes to these regressions and working with people. And generally speaking, you're going to run into the issues in your present life that is connected or related to your overall purpose, your overarching purpose for being here. Now, the second thing I would say about dharma or purpose is that for most of us, it gets wrapped up in our career, our business, our job, our avocation. It could be hobbies and things, but I think it's often wrapped up in that. And I know for me, for years, I was trying to find my way to what I really wanted to be doing, which for me is what I'm doing right now. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this live today on this topic, because I really struggled with this. And as we go through the live today, I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I think it ties in a little bit to like the obstacles. How do you know when you've found your purpose? And things like that. All right, let's see what else we have here. So Colleen Bailey is asking a really good question, I think. What's the difference between life lesson and life purpose? I'm not sure that there is a difference. So when I have clients pose this question to their guide, when I'm working with the clients, I will actually have them ask the guide, almost verbatim, ask, what is your life purpose or the lesson for this lifetime? Why did you come here? And the answer they get is answering kind of the way I just laid out that question. So there may be a difference in a technical sense, but in my practice, the way I have people ask the question, I don't think there is a difference, because I lay out the question just like that. And as I said, generally speaking, it's kind of a larger thing, right? Like the perseverance. Excuse me, courage, being able to speak one's voice, loving yourself, forgiveness, things like that. Now, through your work, I think you can find a way of linking these together, and that when they are linked together, I think then you're kind of on your golden path, if that makes sense. All right. So. Okay. So Janice Nickel is saying about Legal Eagle almost being switched at birth, how it's fascinating. It really is. It's amazing. Okay, so Colleen, I'm going to jump right back to you too, because you're saying, I know that I am to do spiritual and or healing purpose or work, but I don't know how to get started. Okay. So why don't I want to jump then, I want to use your question, your comment, as a segue into what I would call obstacles to finding your purpose, or in your case, to getting started with this. So of course, to the man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And in my realm, in my way of doing things, I would want you to meet with your spirit guide first. And you don't have to work with me to do this. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is BlueSky Hypnosis, and you can just type in spirit guide. And there's several tracks where you are guided to meeting with your guide. And as part of this meeting with your guide, you're prompted to ask what your spirit name is, what that spirit name means. What is your lesson or purpose for this lifetime? How many lives have you been working on it, been given a gift, and so forth, and so on? All of those things would be really valuable. I think could be potentially valuable as building part of a foundation to really understand all of that. Another thing that one can do is using hypnosis. You could go into a lifetime, or excuse me, go to your guide and say, can you show me scenes from my present life where I was moving closer to my lesson or purpose, and also contrasting scenes where I'm moving farther away from it. That's another way where you can really get a sense of what it is that you are, quote unquote, meant to do, and what it feels like when you do those things. So to your point about how do I get started, if you actually know what it is, so you said being a healer, or a spiritual healer, I say you start doing the work. And it doesn't mean you have to get paid for it. You may want to, it might make sense for you to go get some kind of training, to try different kinds of things, to get the training. It makes a lot of sense, I think, to spend more time on the inside, whether you call that meditation, or you call it self-hypnosis, or you call it, walking through the woods and just clearing your mind. Maybe before you go to bed, you ask your guides, or you ask God to show you how to get started with this. In a hypnosis session, we could actually ask the guides, and we could say, how do I get started at being a healer? Did I ever do this in a past lifetime? And if you did, we could regress you to the past lifetime where you actually did that work, or something very similar to it. We could bring that past life self into a sacred space with you and with your guide, and you could talk to her, and you could ask her, tell me, how would I get started doing this work? What skills, talents, and abilities did I have when I was you that I could bring back into this lifetime? So sometimes I will have people actually, in the case of a healer, for example, working with someone in a past life, or putting together herbs, or meditating, or doing something else. And it's like they're actually in that person's body, their earlier self, doing these things, and almost with the idea of reawakening these abilities, these talents, and these skills. And then the practical part of this, I think, is what I started out with, and that is taking classes, starting to do the work, even if you're not getting paid, with friends, with family members, pro bono. And I really believe that when you are doing what you are meant to do, you know it. It's like if you went out on, when you were single and you went out on a bunch of dates, you dated this person, you dated that person, and then you met the one. Nothing is perfect, right? If you start a business in this realm, it's not going to be perfect, because nothing is perfect. But like meeting the perfect person for you, your person, it feels completely different than the people that you dated, where you had a nice time, it was great, it was fine and everything, but it just wasn't, something was missing. And you can go to your head, that's what we're taught to do, and say, well, she has this quality and that quality and this one, and my friends like her, and my mother likes her, and my father likes her, and blah, 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 blah. But it's still something is missing here. And because you feel it when that part is kind of plugged in. And I would say, based on my own experience, the same is true when you begin walking down your own golden path. It feels right. And you can intuitively and even intellectually understand how your skills and your talents and your abilities actually tie into this thing. It all feels like, you know, you got the right key for the right lock and it just slid into that lock and click and it opened the lock. Again, it doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect. I don't think that's the nature of our existence as humans, but it will feel different. At least that's my experience. All right, let's see what else we have here. JW Fat. Hello, JW. I have been able to meet my... having been able to meet my spirit guide is always dark. I can't see. I use a pendulum and clear the spirit and I still can't see it. Okay, so the first question I would have for you is, are you able to feel your guide, right? Because we have 5 senses as human beings, 5 physical senses, and there are 3 kind of main senses, VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Kinesthetic meaning feeling. Most of us generally lead with one of those senses. It's not always visual, right? There's plenty of us who are auditory. There are plenty of us who are kinesthetic. And public schools, and even high school, colleges and so forth, are generally visual mediums. Secondarily, they're auditory mediums, and they almost never meet people kinesthetically. And those people, kinesthetic people, usually struggle in schools because they're not being met either visually, primarily, or auditorily, secondarily. They're not being met at all. And so historically, what have they done with these people? They've sent them to vocational technical schools where those people usually shine because why? They're kinesthetic and they get to touch things. They get to use tools. But it doesn't mean that they're not smart. It just means that they are not a match for that system. So in the same vein, a lot of people think that they need to see everything that's happening, and that's simply not true. So the first question I would have for you is, when you do these regressions, these spiritual regressions, are you feeling anything? In other words, are you feeling any emotions? Are you sensing the presence of somebody near you? Because that is often happening, but people are kind of pushing all that away because they're expecting to see something. If that's not the case, then I would go back to the pendulum and ask, do I have a block regarding meeting my spirit guide? If you get a yes to that, you can start whittling it down. Is the block based on fear? If it is fear, what kind of fear? Is the block based on disbelief? Is the block because I need to meet with someone else before I meet with my spirit guide? If that's a yes, the answer is usually a deceased relative or someone you were close to. Could even be a pet. And in my experience, if that's the case, once you meet with that, say, deceased relative, then you're free to meet with your spirit guide. If it turns out that it's some kind of fear or disbelief, it sounds crazy, but it actually works. It actually usually works really well. Nothing's 100%, but this usually works really well. And that is, you close your eyes, you say 3 times, I hereby suspend all of my fear for the next 60 minutes. Say it 3 times. Now use the pendulum and say, have I temporarily cleared the block for the next 60 minutes? Yes. Am I now free to meet with my spirit guide? Yes. And then when you go and do it, be open to meeting your guide in a variety of ways. It may not be primarily visual. It could be that you hear with your inner ears, just like you see with your inner eye, or it could be that you're able to hold your guide's hand. And if that's the case, you can ask your guide to lead you where you need to go. These are all sort of these very subtle techniques or insights that I've really just learned over doing this over the last 14 years. So hopefully that helps you. All right, let's see what else we got. Oh, cool, Renee's World. Welcome, Renee. Wow, was just about to do a soul connecting meditation and you showed up. Awesome, glad to have you here. Okay, let's see here. Sajoka 2008, good to see you here. You're online with us, awesome. Okay, so Janice Nickel is saying, I don't know my purpose. Honestly, I haven't been able to connect with a guide myself. I would suggest the same thing for you, Janice, that I was suggesting just a moment ago for JW Fat, and that is use the pendulum. Find out if you have a block to meeting with your spirit guide. That's almost always the case. I'm not sure Has it happened a few times? Maybe. But the overwhelming 98, 99% of the time, it's going to be some kind of a block. And if you're able to determine by using the pendulum what the block is, and then you clear the block, you should be able to meet with your guide, especially if you're open to, it may be that you don't see the guide initially. It may be that you connect with the guide in another way. And as I said to JW, it may be that you need to meet with, say, a deceased relative or even a deceased and pet that you loved. Meet with that being first, and then you'll be free to meet with your guide. Okay. Okay, so this is a good question. Marie Hogan. Hi, Marie. Peter, how do we know that the pendulum is giving a correct answer and not an answer we are hoping for? All right, it's a great question. When I'm working with people, first step is the talking. I'm looking for patterns. Second step is using the pendulum. Third step is meeting with the spirit guide and then having the client ask the guide, is it true that I, for example, chose my parents to be my parents before I was born into this lifetime? So we're looking for a couple of steps here, or a couple of gates, to not simply just take the pendulum at face value, but also to now ask the guide if that's really true. Now, if you're using a pendulum and it comes up that you have a block to meeting your spirit guide, and let's say the block is based on fear, and you dig deeper into that and you find out it's a fear based around shame, right? Maybe you did something in a past life and now you're ashamed to meet with your guide. This is possible, this happens, and it's held at the subconscious level. And then let's say that you temporarily clear that. You say, I hereby suspend all the fear I have around meeting with my spirit guide for the next 60 minutes. And then you're able to meet with the spirit guide? Well, I think we've just validated in that case that the pendulum actually was accurate. So I wouldn't, bet the farm on what I get from the pendulum, but it's just another tool that can reveal certain things to you that you can investigate more deeply. In the science and art of body language, what the experts will tell you is that just because you see something going on with a person's body, that generally means it's, say, a stress response, it doesn't mean that's exactly what's going on. It really means it warrants further investigation. So when I was working in corporate sales and I had learned a whole bunch about body language, and I would watch someone in a business setting exhibit one or two body language cues that indicated what we just talked about caused them stress, I didn't assume, oh, boom, I know what's going on here. It allowed me, however, to ask them questions when I got a chance to speak. I'd say, a little while ago you were talking about, the delivery you took on blah, blah, blah 6 months ago. Is everything okay with that? And 7, 8, 9 times out of 10, they'd say, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you brought it up, there actually was a problem with that. So my question validated my observation. And I would say that the pendulum is kind of like the observation. It helps you narrow down, an infinite almost field into something manageable. And now you can validate it by taking the next step. So hopefully that makes sense to you. All right. Okay, so hey, Dara, there's Dara Sullivan. So Peter, when seeking life's purpose through the subconscious, what kind of resolution needs to happen, and how might the answer be communicated? Thanks. Okay, so let's say that your life purpose is courage, and that a particular relationship that you're having right now, maybe you're struggling with something, or maybe you're struggling with something to do with money, or maybe struggling with something that has to do with your health. It may be that struggle is directly linked with your lesson or your purpose, which is to learn courage. If that's the case, the resolution might be to, in this hypothetical case, to face head on, instead of moving away from something that scares you, it might be in this case to move right at that which scares you. because you're in that confrontation of what scares you. You're stepping into something where you need courage. And my belief is that whatever we're dealing with, we ultimately have to go directly toward it and maybe even through it in order to fully learn that lesson, whatever that underlying lesson is. And this, as I've mentioned before, in my reading of it, in my understanding of it, is exactly what Joseph Campbell was talking about in his book, The Hero's Journey. That all myths from around the world are based upon, all the stories are based upon the hero's journey, where the hero is doing really well, then they have a fall from grace, and now they're trying to climb their way back up. There's something, St. George and the Dragon or what have you, there's something they don't want to face, something that really scares them, and they try to get away from it in all these different ways, and finally they have to go right at it, and it's the going right at it where that transformation occurs. And I think all of us are on our own hero's journeys, and that ultimately, and no one can tell you when to do this or how to do this. It's up to us ultimately. We have to run out onto the field and confront this thing that terrifies us. And it could be speaking in public. There's so many different things that could cause this kind of feeling. And as humans, again, we're wired to avoid those situations. But we know from our own experiences in life that when we walk right into that which we're afraid of and we survive it, we actually rise up in some way. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger is the phrase that's coming to mind right now. So hopefully that helps, Dara, and thanks for asking the question. All right. Let's see. Tara VM. Hello, Tara. Here is MH. Peter, hi, Peter. Lovely to see you out in the forest. Yes. I also love listening to you at the live sessions. Thank you. I do often think why these times, what is potentially coming will be hard to bear. Okay. All right. So that's an interesting point. I think about this a lot myself. First of all, the forest is and some of you, because I had this up before. Today, the power went out in my office. I'm getting ready to do the live and set up the lights and all this other stuff, and then the power, just everything goes off. And so I fortunately had enough time to run home. I have this green screen here, and this is a picture of the camping trip that I took with my friend. We went out in kayaks, and this was our camping site looking out over this part of the river, and we were on an island. So I've got really fond memories of this. So when you talk about, I think what you're talking about is the situation in the world and how this, unprecedented set of conditions has occurred, which for a lot of people is causing tremendous hardship. It's hard to understand what the future is going to look like. It looks like everything is kind of uncertain. A lot of people are afraid. And I have no way of knowing this for sure, but my suspicion, my sense, the way I describe it to people is that one side of me, it's like there's the devil and the angel, and the sort of negative side is afraid, quite frankly, because I don't know what's going to happen, and it's wanting to protect. And then the other side is essentially saying to me, you chose to be here at this time. You know that that's true. Your soul decided to incarnate in this body to the parents that you had at this time. And therefore, there must be something really valuable in all of this for you. And it's, I guess for me, and I don't know if this would help you at all, but for me, that gives me some courage, I suppose. It gives me some hope. It gives me something to really hold on to, that regardless of what happens, I chose to be here, and therefore it must be in my highest and best interests, even if it involves significant hardship. And trust me, as a human being, I'm not looking to go through hardship, not at all. But I understand that that's how we grow. And perhaps there's something really big in this for all of us. And maybe from a soul perspective, it's even a privilege to be here at this time. I kind of suspect that that's true. Not 100% sure, but that's kind of what I suspect to be true. So I feel like I can hear what you're saying and empathize with you. So thanks for making the comment. All right. Oh, okay. Colleen Bailey. She's saying, I have done guided meditations and quantum healing sessions, but still not sure. My guide, higher self, has come forward, but the answer is not clear. I have been given gifts like a skeleton key and crystals. Okay, so a lot of times the guides don't want to just lay everything out for you. It's almost like, the way I've described it before is it's like being a parent. And I don't know, Colleen, if you're a parent or not, but you know, my experience with parenting is that you don't want your kids to flounder. You know, if you were teaching them to swim, you literally wouldn't want them to sink to the bottom of the pool and expire. That would, you know, forget, no way, no, of course not. But you also don't necessarily want to do everything for them, because if you do that, then your job, which is to help them function in the world when they become adults, you're kind of undermining them in a way if you do everything for them. And I believe that the guides treat us in the same way. Like they want to give us just enough assistance, but they don't want to do it for us. They don't want to bypass something that otherwise would provide an important learning. So in your case, where you said that they gave you the crystals and the skeleton key, in my experience, that key is designed to open something, right? There's a door somewhere, or there's a box somewhere, and that almost like a treasure hunt, that when you find that door, you find that box and open it, there's probably something extremely revealing inside of there. So the next question is, well, how do I know where the door is? How do I know where the box is? And one of the questions you can ask is, are you giving me this key because I used this key in a past lifetime? It could be a key that unlocks something from a past life. If the answer is yes, now you're going to ask for permission to go into that past lifetime and start investigating that past lifetime, because there's probably something in that past life that needs to be healed, and there may even be skills and abilities and understandings that you can bring back with you. If it's not something dealing with a past lifetime, you want to ask, will you bring me to whatever this key unlocks? If either they don't answer you or they will not answer you, you can ask them, is there something important for me to learn or know or understand before I can use this key? The answer to that, in the way I've laid it out, is almost always yes. And again, you can go back to your pendulum to kind of whittle things down. You know, is this key something from a past life? Is it something from my present life? Is it something from earlier in my present life? Does it unlock something metaphorical? Does it unlock something that I've actually encountered in the quote-unquote real world at some point? You could take those crystals, and with your eyes closed, now you're in meditation already or you're in hypnosis, take those crystals, place them against your heart, and then notice if it causes you to feel anything in particular. You can place it against your abdomen, same thing. Place it against your forehead, same thing. And I'm not saying you have real crystals, you know, tangible crystals in your hand and you're really going like this. I'm saying in your mind, in your consciousness, you're taking these crystals and placing them against your heart. In my experience, what happens a lot of times for people when they put their gift against these parts of their body is that they feel something really powerful. Or sometimes the crystals like go right inside their heart. It's like it was filling a missing piece inside of them. So I guess what I'm driving at here is that what we want, and trust me, I'm a human being too. What we want is we want a direct answer. I ask you a question, you know, where's the nearest convenience store? And I expect somebody to tell me, oh, it's about a mile here. You go down, take a right, make a left, there you are. But in this realm, the answers aren't always that sort of black and white. Sometimes you have to work a little bit more for them. Sometimes you have to just think a little bit farther outside of the box and understand that even though they gave you this gift, maybe you're not ready to use that key yet. But in my experience, if you stay with it, you will find the door that key opens, or you'll find the box that key opens. You just have to be willing to take perhaps other steps. Maybe if the door's over there, you have to go left first, do something over here, come back, and now you'll be ready. And you can ask these questions. And oftentimes they will give you the answer. Like if you say, is there something else you want me to know, something else you want me to understand or do before you will show me what this key unlocks? You'll often get a yes. And then that guide will show you that other thing. And once you have that experience, now it's like you're ready to go use the key. So hopefully that helps. And please, let me know. Let us know what happens if you're able to have a breakthrough on that. And if you get stuck again at a certain point, let me know too and see if I can help. All right. So I talked about the feelings. Like, how do you know when you're on your path, your golden path? How do you know when you are sort of aligned with your purpose? And I kind of like the description I gave before about dating. I think we all kind of know when you're on a date with somebody who's perfectly nice and you really like them, and maybe even on paper, everything matches up. But there's something that just doesn't feel right on the inside. And you could never, maybe never articulate it, or maybe it certainly wouldn't make sense if you were trying to use the logical part of your brain to explain why. But that's not the part of you that falls in love. And therefore, if you sort of tune in to that part of you, you know when it feels right. No one has to tell you. Your conscious mind doesn't have to say, yeah, well, I know you're not feeling it, but it's got this and this and this and this and this, and maybe that feeling doesn't really exist, blah, 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 blah. It's trying to talk you out of it. You're going up into your head rather than being in your heart center. And I think when you're doing the work, if you will, that you were made to do, that you came here to do, it will feel like you just met the person of your dreams. And again, we know it's not perfect, right? Maybe it is at first, but after you've been together a while, there's going to be things that come up. That's the way it is as human beings. And that's the way it is when you're doing the work you were meant to do. But I can tell you this, as someone who's done lots of different kinds of work in my life, that when I found what I felt like I was meant to do, it just felt different to me. Kind of like when I met my wife. It just felt different. So I would encourage everyone to spend more time on the inside and less time on the outside, tapping into those feelings, especially when you're doing that thing. And there are certain things that all of us will do, regardless of whether we get paid for it or not. If you have free time, I'm sure there are things that you're gravitating towards. And I think within those realms, there are probably the seeds of your life's work. There very well could be. And it may be something that you end up getting paid for, maybe it's something you don't get paid for, but it still brings you so much joy. And I do think that it's important to spend your time as much as you can, and this isn't, I'm not trying to say this is easy. It certainly wasn't for me. I spent plenty of time doing jobs I really didn't want to do. And honestly, when I look back on it, it was fear. For a number of years, I did this work part-time while I was working full-time. And there were some real advantages to that. I mean, I kind of honed my craft. I got better at what I was doing, and I didn't have to support a family of 5 with solely from this work. And for years, my wife had said, you should be doing this full time. You should be doing this full time. You should be. And my mind, my sort of logical, rational, practical part of my mind was like, no, that's not going to work. I'll do this thing. And I'd go over and do this thing that I thought, oh, well, it's not really what I want to do, but it's better than the other thing I'm doing. And maybe that'll be a stepping stone towards what I really want to do, which is this work that I'm doing now. And invariably, no matter how perfect that other thing seemed, my heart wasn't in it. And because my heart wasn't in it, it invariably didn't really work out. And I can't tell you how much time I wasted on those things until I finally had the faith and the courage that I could make this work. And it took faith and courage to make it, to make the leap, if you will. And I don't think that I know it's not easy, but I feel like it's really important for us to do that from time to time. You know, to make considered leaps of faith. You know, there was another quote that I looked up before today because it just popped into my mind with this topic today. And it's, of all the words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these: it might have been. And I think, man, for a long time in my life, I've never wanted to have that feeling. I've always felt like it was really important. If there was something that was calling to me from deep inside, that I needed to do it. That I needed to find the courage within myself to do it. And if I could change things in the past, I would have succumbed to fear less. I would have taken more risks. I would have been more bold. Because some of the things that I did in the past that didn't quote unquote work out, like I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Didn't become a professional baseball player. I wanted to be a professional actor. I got paid to be an actor, but I never made enough money to really live, you know, a lifestyle that could support a family of 5. I had my own businesses, and they were, some of them were successful and some weren't. Some I made enough money to support, but my heart was never really in it in that case. And what I found is that, and then I was a firefighter, so a volunteer firefighter, didn't get paid for it, but my heart was really in it big time. Like I loved doing that work. And the weird thing is that I draw on all of those things to do this work. I didn't know when I became a firefighter, I didn't have the slightest idea I was going to be a hypnotist and a life coach. But by being a firefighter, by following my heart, as weird as it sounds, there are aspects of that that actually support the work that I'm doing here. Certainly the work that I did as an actor support the work that I'm doing here. Having my own business supports the work that I'm doing here. Learning about body language supports the work that I'm doing here. I couldn't have known that. So there's this weird aspect of faith, and I know that that's really hard to swallow sometimes. But I think it's that way, like with dating and meeting the right person, and I think it's that way with finding your golden path. You know, there are these other tools that we're talking about that can definitely help you. The pendulum can help you. Meeting with your spirit guide can help you. Regressing to a life where you were actually doing the work that you were sort of designed or destined to do, your dharma. Regressing to earlier in this life where you're actually moving in the direction that's taking you closer to your goal, and then having the opposite scene where you're moving farther away. All of these can be enormously useful. But so can following your heart. You know, even if it feels like it didn't work out, that experience can then become part of this foundation that you're building, that at some point you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe that these weird things that I've done are now all coming together in this thing that I really feel like I was meant to do. You know, one of the things I may have written it in the intro or promo was, what is the consequences of not following your path? What's the consequences of not following your purpose or your dharma? And I just want to answer some other questions and then come right back to that one, because I think that was a pretty powerful one for me. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so, okay, here's Mr. Mind Meditations. Sometimes we want too much or too quick. And then the guides will say, hold your horses, and it will happen when it's time. Work towards it. Yeah, it's kind of what I was saying before, Mr. Mind Meditations, absolutely. That they don't want to do it for you. You know, there's an element, I think, in achieving excellence, you know, in whatever it is that we do, that involves some degree of struggle, some degree of effort, some degree of faith, some degree of maybe, you know, falling down and having to pick ourselves back up and go right back at it again. It's certainly the people that we hold up as heroes, I would suggest, in many cases, are people who've done that very thing. They've done something that's, you know, kind of difficult. They've really worked at it. They've struggled. They've maybe had spectacular failures. They've come back from those failures. to achieve some degree of excellence. And so, yeah, we all want it to be easy. Me too. And yet I don't think that that's how things really work, because if they did work that way, we wouldn't really care that much about the thing. You know, it wouldn't have much meaning if you know, everybody could walk to the top of Mount Everest, like, okay, big deal, so what? But because it's hard, it actually takes on meaning for us. So I think, at least for me, if I can reframe all of this and understand this is part of the road, this is part of the journey, it makes it easier to keep going. With things like weightlifting, my daughter said something to me. She's a college athlete, and she's very strong. And she said when she feels those feelings, you know, of fatigue, of pain, of whatever, it's not really pain, but it's like fatigue, like you just don't want to do this anymore. She just sort of reframes it in her mind, and she just tells herself, hey, this is just a feeling. This is just a feeling. It's not permanent. It's just a feeling. And honestly, when I do that, it makes it a lot easier. I was working out this morning with a friend and holding weights out kind of like this, and I had that burning feeling. And I just thought of my daughter and thought, hey, this is just a feeling. And I think in our lives, when we're walking down that path, some days it's going to be sunny, some days the path and the road is clear, and some days there's a tree that's fallen over it, or it's raining, or it's hailing, or it's dark, or whatever. And I think this is where the faith and the perseverance comes in. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. Barbershop doll, barbershopper doll. Good to see you here, barbershop. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see your face. Hi, Peter. When I'm lost in a life change, I will ask my guides to show me signs of what direction I should go, including a career, etc. And I don't see anything in the next 48 hours. Thoughts? Yeah, I guess the first thought would be, could the signs be appearing and you're not recognizing them as such? That's possible. I mean, I love that one. I love, you know, when asking for signs and so forth. But I think my inclination is to go deeper into this. Let me give you a quick example. It's not necessarily well, maybe it's on purpose actually. That when I was going through a really difficult time about 9 years ago, really difficult, lots of emotion and everything, and I asked my guides to show me, in a state of self-hypnosis, to show me an animal that represented what I was dealing with respect to this difficult time in my life. And what I was imagining they would show me, what I wanted them to show me, was some kind of powerful jungle cat, you know, like a leopard or a tiger or a lion or jaguar or something like that. And what they showed me instead was a frog. Boop, 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 boop. And I was like, in my mind, no, I don't want to see a frog. And I pushed the frog away in my mind, and I said, okay, show me the animal this time that will represent what I'm going through in my life right now and help me navigate this. And they showed me a frog. Boop, 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 boop. And I was like, okay, frog it is. I accept the frog, and then I asked, why a frog? And the answer I got right away was, because this difficulty you're having in your life right now is allowing you to leap forward, which immediately helped me to reframe what was happening in my life from being a catastrophe to being something that, even though I didn't understand it all at the moment, was actually in my highest and best interests. So my inclination, as I said, is to go a little bit deeper and actually meet with the guides. Maybe have them take you by the hand and bring you somewhere, show you something, let you have an experience that will help to answer that question. I do like using a pendulum, especially as a first step to sort of narrow things down. So for me, that's really useful, and I would suggest that that might be helpful for you too. You know, you can also ask questions like, is this struggle I'm having right now part of a greater life purpose? Is my life purpose right now something I've done in a past life? If so, have them show you that past life. Or you can do that technique I mentioned a little while ago, which is have them show you a time in your present life where you were moving towards your goal. You were moving towards your purpose or your life path, your lesson. And then have them show you another scene, another vignette. This is all from like acting, where you're moving farther away from your life purpose or your life goal or your life path. And in those scenes, notice how you feel. This is really important, right? It's not just what you're doing. Like I'm water skiing or I'm doing the dishes or, I'm playing basketball. It's how you feel while you are doing those things. It's like those things are, it could be part of the gifts you were given when you came to this place that allows you to do them. And chances are really good you'll feel a certain kind of feeling. Maybe you'll feel freedom, or you'll feel powerful, or you feel like you're standing taller, or you feel like your heart is open, or something else like that. And that is a really important clue, because whatever it is that you're contemplating doing, we want you to feel those feelings. Now, are you going to feel that way all the time? No. But when you're doing it, you're going to feel more like those feelings. Just like when you're dating 6 different people over a period of time, but with one of them, you're like, whoa, boom. I have this feeling like, man, it's totally different. So thanks for asking the question, and I hope that helps. If it doesn't, just ask a follow-up question. And if I'm not able to answer it today, send me an email. All right, good to see you here. Let's see, where are we? And I want to just make sure that we've kind of covered most of the things that I wanted to cover. Oh, one of the things that I got to share with you guys is, where is it here? There we go. Get rid of that. So why did Peter put up a picture of a gas station? So there's a book. It was also made into a movie that I've referenced before. The book is called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and the movie is called Peaceful Warrior. And in the story, there's a very wise person that the protagonist comes to call Socrates because he's so wise. And at some point, this kid, the protagonist is a kid, he's a college athlete. He's really pissed off at Socrates. And he says, what the hell do you know? You work at a gas station. And Socrates says to him, he says, Dan, it's a service station. And service is the highest calling there is. I love that quote. And I feel like it's probably part of all of our paths, that we're all here to offer service to each other, because in the words of Socrates, it really is the highest calling there is. And you don't have to be a firefighter or a doctor or a teacher in order to offer service to other people. I would suggest that all of us have an opportunity to offer service to other people, almost irrespective of what we do. And I'm kind of reminded of a business talk I heard once by a guy named Chip Conley, who started a series of boutique hotels in the San Francisco Bay Area. And the last time we had a major crisis, not as bad as this one, but it was a big crisis, was in 2008. Markets crashed, people weren't traveling, and his businesses were really suffering. And he studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom is food, shelter, clothing, so forth. And as you move up the pyramid to get to the highest level, it's things like self-actualization. And what he learned by studying Maslow was that service to other people delivers something to us that is way more powerful than all of the other pieces, even including money. And then he asked himself, well, how do you help someone who is a housekeeper rise to the top of that pyramid? And for him, it was service. And it was to the housekeepers, you're taking care of people who are far from home. They don't know where they are, and they may be tired, and they may be lost. And you are able to help them feel like they have a home away from home, that you're helping to take care of them. And as trite and as silly as it could sound, he said it really made all the difference in the business. That and recognizing people for what they did, regardless of what their jobs are. And it does remind me of this line from Peaceful Warrior. It's not a gas station, Dan. It's a service station. And service is the highest calling there is. I just think that's awesome, and I'm glad you bore with me as I relayed that. All right, and then let's see, what else do we have here? Just want to make sure we got everything. I think we did. So next week, live at 5, we are going to be doing the law of attraction. So this is it's been a popular topic for the last, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years. The movie The Secret came out and really talked about this, and I think that was about 15 years ago. That made a big impact on me when I saw that. So I thought we would talk about the law of attraction, and I hope you guys will consider joining next week for that and bring your questions and your comments along with you. I think it should be a really, really cool live. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm going to take a couple more questions here, and then we'll bid each other a good weekend. All right, let's see what we got here. Tony Johnson is saying, I would love to have a past life regression. I've had 2 prior tries. Both times I was unable to be hypnotized. Can everyone be hypnotized? The answer is yes. Now, most of us, have our definition of hypnosis created for us by entertainment, because that's where that concept comes up in people's lives. They're not having, a class in high school or a class in college, generally speaking, that teaches them what hypnosis is. And in the entertainment version, it means a catatonic sleep-like state where you do whatever you're told and you don't remember anything. If that's what you think you're going to experience, which most people, that's what they think, and you don't have that experience, you go, well, I wasn't hypnotized. So I think it's really important to level set with people what hypnosis is, what to expect when you have a past life regression. The next thing I would say to you is what I've said to other people today, and that is use a pendulum. If you don't know how to use one, I've got a video on my channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing, and I'm going to put a little, am I going to do that? A little plug for myself, yeah, there we go. Watch that video. It's pretty short, teaches you how to use a pendulum, and you can ask, do I have a block regarding experiencing a past life? If the answer is yes, now you want to figure out what that block is. The 2 most common blocks would be fear of some kind, there's different kinds of fear, or it would be disbelief. So even if your conscious mind says, yeah, I'm open to this, it could still be that you have part of your subconscious mind has disbelief around that, or it could have fear. Those are the 2 most common. If you have one of those blocks, you want to neutralize that. You want to be able to deal with that. The most effective way I've found of dealing with that is just by repeating with your eyes closed for the next 60 minutes, for example. I suspend all of the fear I have around doing a past life. Say that 3 times. Now go try to do it again and see if it happens. Probably will. So hopefully that helps you. Glad you're here. Okay. Janice Nickel, thank you so much for the advice, Peter. I hadn't thought about being blocked in a way, as I feel very open to the experience, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's weird, but neuro-linguistic programming has this concept of us as human beings, that we are made up of various parts. Kind of like a car, right? A car is a sophisticated system. It has lots and lots and lots of parts that make up the car. If one part goes bad, it could prevent the car from functioning properly. We are complex systems too. Probably more, definitely more complex than a car, but the same idea. And there can be part of you that doesn't want to, for example, lose weight. Part of you that doesn't want to stop smoking. Part of you that doesn't want to let go of the pain that you have in your shoulder. And part of you that doesn't want to go into a past life. And just like a car, if one part isn't working, it can prevent the whole system from starting up and driving down the road. So even though it feels like you're open to this, this is one of the advantages of the pendulum. You can find out if there's a part of you that's creating a block about going into a past life. And again, the reason for that would generally be fear, but it could also be disbelief. There are some other possibilities too, but those are the two main ones. So cool, glad you're here. All right. Oh, here's a new person. Brett White. Welcome, Brett. I am here to stand in my truth and be fully present, even if I have to go alone. I am here to bear witness to the way. Good for you, Brett. And I'm glad you joined us. Yeah, cool. And what's this one? Barbara Shopper Doll said, my lights went out, power failure, and her keyboard died. Yeah, we're in this together. All right. See, I'm just scrolling down here, looking for another question. Here we go. Tara VM. Good to see you, Tara. Peter, I think I've discovered my purpose is teaching. I just have that right feeling about it. But the issue is I have doubts it will bring me the lifestyle I badly want. This ruins the magic for me. Okay, so I'm assuming what you mean by this is that you fear that you won't earn enough money as a teacher, a conventional teacher, maybe in a public school, to, as you say, live the lifestyle you want. That could be house, property, cars, travel, clothes, so on and so forth. If that's the case, it may be the case. Well, at first, it occurs to me that there's different kinds of teaching. First of all, there are teachers, I think, that make a decent amount of money. There are teachers who, they work, they may have their summers off. Most teachers I know have their summers off. There are teachers I know who have a side gig. There are teachers who go from teaching into administration. There are teachers who write books. And there are people who teach, but they teach in other contexts. They don't teach necessarily in a public school system. They might teach on their own. Again, maybe as, built around being an author, or maybe they have a big YouTube presence or a YouTube channel and they teach around that. Or maybe they have private clients that they work with. I think what I'm driving at here is if you've got that internal desire to be a teacher, and let's say you have some skills and abilities that you brought with you in order to support that purpose, that goal, and that feeling, then there might be different ways that you can arrange these so that you can reach that kind of lifestyle that you want. And then with the lifestyle, I was talking to somebody not long ago who said, this person said they wanted to earn $1 billion. And my first question was, I wasn't judging them for it. I was just saying, why? Why? And they started to explain it, and I was just asking more and more questions, like, what's the feeling state that you'll get when you have $1 billion? And that's kind of getting into next week's topic on the law of attraction, because you want to be a feeling match for what it is you want on the outside. And I think for you, maybe next week will be valuable for you as well, because there's this thing you want to do. It's just, how do you go from here to there? So, I think when you're in the flow, when you're doing what you were meant to do, when you feel really good about it, when your skills, talents, and abilities are aligned, then the path kind of opens up for you. And all of those other things start to come as a result, as opposed to that quote from the Bhagavad Gita that we have on our refrigerator. If you're doing something that doesn't light you up, but there's the promise of money there, it turns out to be hollow. So thank you for the comment. Hope some of that helped you, and I hope you show up next week for the Law of Attraction Live. All right. Oh, this is so cool. So Marie Hogan is saying, Tara, I am a retired teacher of over 25 years. I absolutely love teaching my junior high kids. I would come home energized instead of tired. Oh man, that is so important. She came home energized instead of tired. Marie, that's such an important comment, because that's another way we know by the feeling state. Now, this doesn't mean you never get tired doing that. I'm sure Marie got tired sometimes, but because she was doing what she really wanted to do, what really lit her up, what her skills and talents were probably aligned with, what her heart was open to, she received even more value, right? She received even more value. So that's something that, because look, the wealth is important. Money is important, abundance is important, but wealth comes in many different forms. So it's not just finances that define wealth. It's also your physical health, your mental health. And Maria is talking about aspects that pertain to your mental health. If you come home and you feel energized rather than wiped out, if you're looking forward to going to work the next day rather than not, that's going to in turn affect your physical body and your physical health. And that's a form of wealth in and of itself. That's a form that gives you a lifestyle that somebody with a lot of money who's now sick can't even enjoy. These are all things I think that are really important to grasp and understand. And you, Tara, along with everyone else here, is a creative powerhouse. And I think when you start walking down the path of what it is that really lights you up, all kinds of powerful forces come to aid you, in the words of Goethe, the philosopher Goethe. Be bold and powerful forces will aid you. That all the things I said before, you may write a book and that book might sell a bunch. You might be called in to give speeches and talks about being a public school teacher who wrote this book that pay you to do that sort of thing. Maybe you start a side gig. Maybe you create a YouTube channel around being a public school teacher or educating children or whatever it is. And you get a following there, and that leads to other business opportunities. My point is that when you're on your path, that path tends to open up rather than getting smaller. And when obstacles come in the way, you've got the energy and the enthusiasm to deal with those obstacles rather than doing something you didn't even want to do in the first place. Now here's this freaking obstacle. I don't want to deal with that. So Marie, thank you so much for adding to this. It was a huge piece, and I appreciate that for both of you. All right, let's take one more, and then we'll head out on our weekends. Oh man, somebody's got a cat stuck on the roof. Darn it. And it's only 14 degrees? Whew. Well, fire department will help you with that. Good luck with your kitty. Oh, this is nice too. Jeannie's saying, hi Peter, I'm so glad I was finally able to tune into your live chat. Been listening to all of your videos for a couple of months now. Thank you so much. Well, thank you too. Thank you for being here. And I hope you'll keep coming back. All right. JW Fat is saying she's interested in the law of attraction. Cool. We'll see you here next week, JW. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing another question, but there's lots of really kind things that people are saying. I think we'll end with, oh, wait a minute, here's Todd Hunt. Todd is saying, thank you, it seems to be interfering with me. I try to block out my thoughts, but my mind won't let me. Is this fixable? Yes, yes, and the first thing I would suggest is that when you try not to do something, so when you say, I try to block out my thoughts, and this kind of gets to the law of attraction, you are giving your energy and your attention to what you don't want. And the famous way of kind of really understanding this, and I'm not going to ask you to do it now, but you can imagine this. If I were to ask you all to close your eyes, and then I said, okay, think about anything that you want. Think about anything in the universe you want to think about. But there's one thing I don't want you to think about, and I don't want you to think about under any circumstances at all. Don't do it. Don't think about giraffes. Don't think about a herd of giraffes walking through the savannah, and definitely don't think about little giraffes following them. Now, if your eyes were closed and you were trying not to think about giraffes, what's going to happen? giraffes come into your consciousness. So the first thing that I would say, Todd, is just the act of trying to push something away, just the act of trying to block something out actually causes you to focus on it more. So the best thing to do, if you don't want to think about that, is think about something else instead. And just let it be whatever it wants to be. Now again, you can also use that pendulum to find out, do you have any blocks? Because if part of you, like a part of a car that's gone bad, if part of you is fearful of going into a past lifetime, then that part's going to be like, no, not having it, because we don't want to feel shame. We don't want to feel guilt. We don't want to feel sadness. We don't want to feel grief. It's going to be something like that. And if you find that you have a block like that, trying to bulldoze over it is not the most effective way of doing that. It's way more effective to work with the parts rather than to try to use force and subsume them and overcome them. So would highly recommend that you use a pendulum and try to work it out through there. If you have any problems with that, just send me an email, peter@blueskyhypnosis.com, and we'll see if we can help you further with that, or come next week and mention it, and we'll see if we can help you in that form as well. Thanks for asking the question, making the comment. Thanks to all of you who are here, the new people, the regulars. Thank you so much. Have an awesome weekend, and hope to see you next Friday live at 5 Eastern, the Law of Attraction Live. If you haven't signed up to my channel yet, BlueSky Hypnosis on YouTube, please subscribe there, and you'll get alerted with all new content, especially if you click the bell notification icon. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.